Hello and welcome to GeoSnippits. I'm Headhardhat. In the next few minutes, we'd like to teach you some information tidbits about the game, the sport, the obsession known as geocaching. Today's episode comes from one of our viewers, a suggestion that was emailed to me. Let me read it to you. It comes from Bob, who goes by OBX Nomad, which stands for Outer Banks Nomad. It says, HHH, my grandson and I very much enjoy watching your GeoSnippits, as well as reading your blog. He's from Cary, so one of these days I'm sure you'll encounter him while searching out a geocache. A tutorial we think would be very beneficial would be on assembling the items, selecting a container, creating a log, and placing it out into the wild. In short, what it takes to place your very first geocache. Well, I think that's a great idea, Bob. We're going to do just that. Matter of fact, we're going to make a whole mini-series based on that. We're going to start off with the smallest one, and that's going to be 35mm containers. So we're going to take a 35mm container, we're going to cami it, we're going to put a logbook in it, maybe some other items. We're going to show you some interesting ways of putting it out as a hide. We're going to work our way up then from small to regulars to larges. But let's start off with 35mm. Let's go! Now, to finish off our 35mm containers before we go and hide them, we need to camouflage them. These are going to be going into the forest or the woods type area, so we're picking colors like forest green and a brown textured paint. Let's begin. Start with the green. All you want to do is a nice, even coat. Make sure you get the top really good and all the sides. Not a whole lot to them, just nice even coats. So that they get color. Now when you sandpaper them, the little nodules that the sandpaper puts into them is going to make that stick even better. Alright, the greens are done. Let's start working on the browns. Now with textured paint, it comes out a lot harder, and you have to be a further distance of away from it for it to work. It's going to take more than one coat, but the idea is to get enough of a textured effect that it doesn't look like a 35mm container. Just make sure you get a nice even coat. Again, that sandpaper is going to work really nice holding everything together. And that's all there is to it. We're in a parking lot of a very popular grocery store to show you an example of probably the most commonly hidden way of doing a 35mm container. That's known as a skirt hide. Now a skirt hide is just that. It's a light pole that, if you look at them, has this little apron at the bottom of them. Sometimes they're screwed down, a lot of times they're not. Lift it up, it is a perfect place to hide a 35mm container. Now you can find these all over the place. They are the most commonly way of hiding them. But what I would suggest when it comes to 35mm containers, make sure you find a place worthy of hiding them. In other words, don't just put them anywhere. Put them at a place that's going to show some interest to people when they come to visit where your geocache is hidden. Very big point. Now here's a great example for hiding the 35mm container. We have a nice sign right here for Wake County off a secluded path. We've got a 35mm container with a magnet and some epoxy. Why magnetized? So that it can stick to the pole. How do you hide it? Very simple. Put it into the side, push up. Great place to hide it. You can also take it and apply it down at the very base of the pole itself too. Make sure that it's in an area that the groundskeepers, when they cut the grass, won't make it go. But this is an excellent place to hide a geocache. Okay, here's a good example. Here's one of our camied 35 millimeters that we did with the textured paint. If you know, it looks a lot like wood. Here's a good place when in the woods or a wooded area to put it. Any place that you have in a log would be great camouflage for a 35 millimeter like that. A little nook, a little cranny, and you have an instant hard to find geocache that people will enjoy the challenge of trying to get. Another good example of what to do with a 35 millimeter in the woods. Okay, we camied up this 35 millimeter container is green. In a woods, I wonder where would be a good place to put a 35 millimeter that's green. North Carolinians love holly bushes. Let's set one up. Okay, so you're feeling sneaky and you want to hide that 35 millimeter in a holly bush. This is how we set it up. It's in. Holly bushes are prickly, which makes it even much more fun when it comes to finding geocaches. But what I did is I took, in this case, a pink tie and I hit it on a branch so that it stays nice and tight. You don't have to use pink, you can use whatever color you want, depending on how difficult you want to make the find itself. But again, another really good example of how to hide a 35 millimeter. Now hopefully you're starting to get the idea that there's a zillion ways of hiding 35 millimeter containers. Let me show you an interesting example right here of a unique way of doing it. What you're looking at is a tree stump that someone had placed. This looks like your standard cut-off tree. You can find this in the woods or in other areas. But the unique thing that you can do with this is what's underneath. This is a 35 millimeter container drilled and placed in a hole of the bottom of the stump. Take it out, sign the log, and you're good to go. What an amazing way of hiding 35 millimeter containers. Geocachers are one of the most inventive people that I know on the planet. What ways do you think you could hide a 35 millimeter container? Well, we hope you enjoyed this episode of GeoSnippits and come back real soon. Well, we'll have even more information and tidbits about the game, the sport, the obsession known as geocaching. Now, in this episode, which is going to be a mini-series about putting out your very first geocaches, dealt with 35 millimeters. Now, we taught you how to cami them up and some interesting hide suggestions. We hope that you go out and try very soon and put out your own geocaches. Be sure to log on to geocaching.com to get all the information about the rules and regulations about doing a hide, but enjoy the hunt and the experience of putting out your very first hide. It's a lot of fun. Well, folks, we gotta go. This is Headhardhat saying we hope to see you out on the trails real soon. Bye-bye, folks.